and then go live at 7.
Well, it's already live because you hit start streaming.
We're already live.
On YouTube.
All right.
As soon as you tap.
Alrighty. Alrighty. Good evening, everybody. And if you are there, I've got to, let's see. If you are there, say hello, tell me where you're from. Good evening to what is known as Tasting Tuesday. And if you don't know what Tasting Tuesday is an excuse to drink fine wine, talk about Virginia wine, celebrate Virginia wine, more importantly, to learn something, and then meet one each other virtually rather. So let's say hi to a few folks. First one's tonight, love.wine.dog, and that is Steph and Tom in Mount Vernon. Good evening. Hello. I'm not seeing comments. There we go. They're coming in slowly but surely. Stephen Ronnie Rader from Portsmouth, Ohio, the great state of Ohio. Good evening. And then we've got Janet and Earl from Ohio as well. The lovely Jenna Morrison. Missed you last week. Hang on a moment. Jenna, David, and you got engaged. Well, if there's a reason to miss a Tasting Tuesday, that is certainly it. So lots and lots of love from all of us at Keswick Vineyards, and we will toast to your happiness and to your well-being. But many, many congratulations to you and David. That is incredible, incredible news. We have the wonderful, wonderful Samantha Seelig, Ray, and Seelig family. Always lovely to see Sam. Thank you for joining us, Sam. It always nice to see you. We got Eric Stiff, Sylvia Miller, Patton Harvey, all the way from Richmond, Virginia Wine Time. Paul and Warren, who took my advice and decanted it for 2 hours. I'm excited, as did I. We have Mr. Glenn Johnson and Debbie from Corolla, North Carolina. They're the Sugamellis. Cheers to Dennis and Marsha with the entire Mathis family. We've got the Bassetts, Brian and Anna, and then from Falls Church, Rebecca Fortney, Kathy Harden, Tracy France, Linda Irvin, right here in great city of Charlottesville, Ferguson, John and Iva, and Dave Maddox, Susan and David. And they say they have their bag. There we have the Schaefer Myers, OH, Mark and Lynn, and James Letho, all the way from Williamsburg. So good evening to everybody. Super excited about tonight because we're talking about a beautiful, beautiful wine, one that I haven't had for a while, one that I am excited to share with you. We've got some really cool videos. We've got some really cool sort of photographs about the vineyard. We're going to have a wonderful, wonderful discussion about a grape that, I think worldwide is well known. Virginia is certainly not. And we're talking, obviously, about Cabernet Sauvignon. If you have it, the Block 7 2019 is what we are drinking tonight. But as always, if you don't have that particular wine, grab a wine from Keswick. And if you don't want to drink Keswick, that's totally fine. Drink Virginian. Drink something local. And if you're drinking something local, let us know what's in your glass. As always, I have brought out the bag. The bag is the big ass glass. And when we're talking about wines that are big and full-bodied, big glasses that expose the wines to oxygen is always important. And yes, so we are talking about the 2017. It feels maybe that this wine has aged for a period of time in the bottle, but the truth is it has been in the bottle less than 6 months. For this has spent almost 3 years in barrel, as is the heritage that we're tasting next week. So let's get a few more folks in and give them the opportunity to join us. Pat says they decanted it at 3 and having a grilled ribeye, baked potato, and salad. Sounds like a match made in heaven. So Pat and Harvey, thank you for joining us, and I hope the wine really does work. So Linda says she's trying to post a photo of a tasting shirt and her bag. But it won't work. I'm not sure what's going on there, but if you have any comments or thoughts or questions, but there's Tasting Tuesday. Obviously, Tasting Tuesday, again, is just a celebration of life, of wine, and more specifically wines that are made in Virginia. Marsha says the Mathises, parents, children, and girlfriends are all there this evening. So good evening to all. Welcome to a little show that we've been doing for a couple of years, and or a couple of months rather. Sylvia Miller says drinking a 2013 Cabernet from Bro Vineyards, still amazing. Yes, Bro Vineyards out in Northern Virginia. Very good friends of ours, make wonderful, wonderful wine, and really appreciate that as well. And then we got the whites, Lenny and Suzanne joining us. Steak and Brussels sprouts, Holly and Chris. Cheers to the fine folks, the Corcorans over there as well. So, all right, got a lot to get to tonight. We got a lot of visual aids. We got a lot to talk about. Certainly a wine that I'm really, really excited about. But always, let's start off with the things that are the most important, and that is you and your health and your well-being, and that I hope you have had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. You've had a wonderful week, and that you're continued to doing well, and that as the world opens up, you find yourself more optimistic. And as always, we are very grateful for your support and the fact that we've been doing Tasting Tuesdays for almost 15 months now, almost every single week, and the fact that we still have as many people joining is certainly a blessing. And in the great scheme of things, what we do as producers is really not that important, but we appreciate all of you. So a big cheers and a thank you for your time and your patronage, and we wish you all the best and well. So as always, decanting a wine that has spent this much time. This is a wine that we make, obviously in the business of wine at Keswick, we do release wines appropriately, sometimes prematurely, but with the Cab and the Heritage, we make wines specifically with the intention of aging. So I'm really excited to explore a wine that is really, really young. Decanting, as you can see, we've done that. There's the big old glass. I'm using the Riedel, the glass that they make for Cabernet. I always say that wine is so snotty and there's so many rules and regs. But if at the end of the day you're drinking a decent bottle of wine, please, please, please do stick it in a decent glass. The experience of drinking a wine will be that much more heightened. Okay, so a couple of things we're doing a little bit different. First and foremost, we get a lot of questions about the property, about Keswick Vineyards, about our vineyards. Yes, you may know that we are 70 acres. You may know that most of our vineyards were planted in 2000, and then expansion in 2005, and then further expansions in 16, 17, and 18. But what we wanted to do is give you a very short sort of video. It's about an hour long. Oh my God, that would really take the thing away. But it's a minute long, and it's a great visual aid about the expanse of Keswick Vineyards. And for those that have not been on the tour, you can see our vineyards. Now, the fruit for this wine, when you go through it, you're going to see a big wind machine in the back. That is our 7-acre block. So let me pull this up. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful sort of introduction to viticulture and the fact that grapes do not grow in ugly places. So here we go. Let's see what happens. All right. Alrighty, so there you go. that gives you it's sort of an overview of my office, and you're always reminded what a beautiful, beautiful office and part of the world that we live in. So when we talk about a varietal like Cabernet, just a little bit of a background. Keswick has just over 10.5 acres planted. Cabernet is a varietal that is obviously well known within the world of wine, right? It is really up there with Pinot Noir and Shiraz and Chardonnay in terms of sort of, kind of the benchmark kind of grapes out there, right? Now, you don't see a lot of Cabernets in Virginia, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Cabernet requires a longer growing season. It's late budding, it's late ripening, so it thrives in areas like California where the growing season is long, the rain is minimal, the sunshine and the heat is plentiful. It can certainly do incredibly well in Bordeaux. Now remember, Bordeaux, you find very few varietal wines in Bordeaux. They're generally blended with Cabernet Franc and Merlot and Petit Verdot to a lesser extent. There are influences in Bordeaux that allow Cabernet to ripen. Obviously, the gravelly soils, the absorption and then the radiation of heat, the Landes forest, the natural sand dunes, the warming Gulf current that comes in, the maritime climate that extends the growing season and that allows Cabernet to grow. But you don't find Cabernet grown in cool to moderate climates. It needs warmth, it needs heat, it needs to be able to ripen. With Cabernet Franc, you have a little bit of a safety net. If you make a wine that's slightly underripe and it's slightly bell pepper and slightly green, you can always market it as, this is a Saumur Champagny, this is a Bourguet, or this is a Chinon, and those are varietals that come from the Loire Valley, the vineyards of Touraine and Anjou and Saumur, and they tend to have that sort of herbaceousness, and that characteristic in Cabernet Franc is somewhat accepted. And you find that a lot in Virginia Cab Francs. But when you talk about Cabernet Sauvignon, you're talking about hedonistic flavors, dark extracted, blackberry, blueberry flavors, certainly not red spectrum. You get a lot of oak nuances as well, smoke, toast, the coffee and the mocha, the cassis, which is the blackcurrant. So certainly the philosophy again is that the quality of the wine comes from the quality of the grape itself. So the first thing we need to be very, very, very kind of honest about is the fact that Virginia and Keswick cannot make Cabernet each and every year. So we started making Cabernet in 2007. We skipped 8, we made 9 and 10, skipped 11 and 12, did 13 through 17, skipped 18, did 19, skipped 20. So we've done more sort of single varietal wines from those vintages, but when you talk about 18 and 20, 11 and 12, you're talking about rain, and you're talking about a vintage that really doesn't support the growing of the fruit and the making of the wine that really you want to bottle as a varietal wine. All right, so we're talking about a wonderful vintage in 2017. I know we're talking a lot about 19 vintage because these are the vintages that are on the tasting shelves and the wines that you see. But don't forget about 17. 17 was a beautiful vintage. It was a little bit cooler, which I like cooler vintages because you have a little bit more retention of acidity. Acidity is really important. Conservation of acidity, it balances out tannins, keeps the wines vibrant, makes the wines more elegant, more restrained, more refreshing, certainly age-worthy, and then certainly more food-friendly as well. Didn't have a lot of rain in 17 at harvest, so August, September, October, and we were picking this fruit mid to late October, which is great. The theory for us is that after bud break, we would like 180 days of growing. Now, Cabernet needs a lot of heat units or growing degree days. Now, what does that mean? It really means that from April 1st to October 31st, that is regarded as the essential growing season in a vineyard. You can't, you discount the years like the Decembers, the Januaries, Februaries, the March, because that is where the vines are dormant and they're pruning, right? Now, also grapes grow above 50 degrees Fahrenheit. So a growing degree day is the difference between the highest temperature of the day and the lowest in the temperature of the day minus 50. Meaning that if you have a 90 degree day, you have a 60 degree evening, that's 150. You get the average, which is 75. You take away 50 and you have 25 growing degree units. Cabernet requires upwards of 3 to 3,500 growing degree units to really, really ripen. Because as a consumer, and the question of the day is, do you mind Cabernet Francs that are herbaceous, minty, eucalyptus? Now, when I say minty and eucalyptus, I always think of Australian, like Coonawarra. You know, Coonawarra is southeastern Australia. It's the terroir soil and the limestone. It has that really minty and eucalyptus, but that's sort of herbal. It's not underripe because Australia has really warm, hot kind of climates as well. So when you as a consumer drink Cabernet, do you mind greener, herbaceous, bell pepper kind of flavors? For me, with Cabernet, I tend to steer away from that as well. So we are dealing with a vintage that gave us the opportunity to grow incredible fruit. And then as winemakers, our job is really the amplification of those characteristics in a glass as well. So what I want to do is talk about some of the factors at Keswick that allows us to grow Cabernet. And the most important, I would imagine, is soil. Most of Virginia's soils are clay-based. Clay is good for certain things. Merlot loves clay. You know, in the right bank of Bordeaux and Pomerol and Saint-Emilion, it's got the ferrous clay, which clay with a high iron content. Clay holds a lot of water. It's cooler, it can delay bud break, but it also holds a lot of water. Now, we always talk about water in Virginia being a big sort of determining factor of terroir. The fact that we get 40 to 45 inches on average is about 300% more than what a vineyard actually needs to kind of grow and sustain photosynthesis and stay the health of the vine. Now, this is a photograph of the soils in our backfield, our block 7, which is what we're trying. And you'll see you've got a lot of schist, and you've got shale, and you've got bits of quartz that are intermingled in there. The biggest issue is that there is not a high level of clay. There is some, but not a lot. So these are really, really well-drained soils. And that's really important. The other thing that the slate does is you get this sort of absorption effect of heat and then the re-radiation of heat in the as well. So that is critically important. The fact that we can mitigate a rain when we get a 2-inch dump really quickly, but it follows a cooler sort of pressure or a low pressure system, and we're going to get 7 or 10 days of no rain. We're not forced to pick. These soils evacuate water very well, but they do hold some water deep down in that 3 to 6 feet layer. So what happens is the root system of the vines go down deep. They find water and they can sustain photosynthesis, right? So when you go into a drought year, and we've gone into a bit of a drought season this year as well, but grapes through the photosynthesis, you know, they use carbon dioxide and they release sort of oxygen and they produce glucose. When there's no water, the vine actually shuts down. The stomata closes, doesn't transpirate. It's not giving it water vapor. Again, that's where water is required. The leaves turn away from the sun and they become really warm. So not only are these really free-draining, well-drained soils, but they also absorb heat, they re-radiate heat, but they've got moisture really deep down. So the big thing from our block 7 is not only can we sustain some rain, but these vineyards are actually self-regulating. They don't produce a lot of vegetative growth. They're not big producers of heavy fruit in terms of ton, because remember, we always talk about the fact that we are wine growers. Our job, our most important sort of mission in life is to grow the best fruit possible, to give us at least the opportunity to make a wine that we would be proud of as well, right? Now, if we were grape growers and we were selling grapes to third party, then yeah, you know, you're looking about tonnage, because most vineyards get paid by the ton as well. The other important thing other than soil is obviously when you come to harvest, you know, and everyone's like, so how do you make your picking parameters? Yes, certainly we look at some chemistry, we look at the acid, we look at the pH, we look at the extract, we look at the yeast assimilable nitrogen. We do a lot of tasting. Now, we do have a machine harvester or a way to mechanically harvest, but with this fruit, we do a lot of picking by hand. And picking by hand is exactly that. It's skilled labor that goes through and picks the fruits and puts them into these 25-pound lug boxes, right? Small lug boxes that can stack on each other. You pick them up. You can see the grapes are fairly intact. beautifully dark. This, I believe, is from the 2017 vintage. You can see they're not over full. The lug boxes actually sit on top of each other, so they don't compress the fruit. The fruit is really, really intact. And the one thing you'll notice is how clean the fruit is already. There's not a lot of leaves. There's not a lot of mog. A skilled picker is going to pick about a ton to ton and a half a day. That's 80 to 120 lugs. It's a hell of a lot of fruit to pick by hand. But the most important thing is that is your first quality step. If the fruit is green, leave it on the vine. If the fruit is ripe, pick it and put it in a lug box. If the fruit is damaged, if it has bird damage, deer damage, it has any sort of botrytis cinerea or sour rot, drop it on the ground. So when the fruit comes to us, it's already sort of been, it's gone through that qualitative step. It's also important because these lug boxes, you can see on the left there, they've got holes in them. So when we put them into our cold room, the fruit gets really, really, really cold. We try and chill it down to 38 degrees, 40 degrees, and we chill it down for 24 hours prior to processing. So let's talk about processing. Very important with Cabernet Sauvignon, with others as well, is that we do a lot of hand sorting. Now, this fruit has now been destemmed. It's gone through a machine that actually does as the name suggests. It actually separates the berries from the stems, but not all the stems are separated, right? There's a certain amount of stems that go through there. There might be a leaf. There might be little jacks. Now, jacks are what you call sort of mélarondage in French, or chicks and hens. With fruit set, you might have some fruit set, but you have big berries and small berries. You have these tiny little sort of green berries that intermingle as well. So what we do is the fruit goes onto a belt table, and we have multiple people either side of that table literally picking out the stems and the leaves. The other thing you'll notice is the berries are whole. They're not crushed. We don't want to macerate the berries. We don't want to destroy it. We actually want to keep a lot of the whole berries intact as well. That's just a stylistic thing. Obviously other winemakers might do some crushing, but at this point we haven't made any addition. That fruit is cold. It's harvested correctly. This is actually the second step of quality control. And then at the end of the day, we're getting, about 90% of the normal yield into the tank. But the intention is to make the best wine possible. So it is extremely labor intensive. It's extremely intensive in terms of investment of time. But at the end of the day, if you can improve the berries and the quality of the berries that go into your fermentation tank, you get one shot a year to make wine. It's really worth it, especially when Mother Nature and the environment gives you that opportunity to make a beautiful wine as well. So after sorting, the wines get tested. We can put them in 1 ton T-bins. We can put them in 5 ton tanks. You can certainly ferment in oak. You can certainly ferment in concrete or amphora or terracotta. That does happen. But then we actually start the fermentation process. And the fermentation process is the sugar in the terms of glucose and fructose turning into ethyl alcohol. Carbon dioxide gets released and heat is generated. And that very simply is fermentation, but it goes through a 9-step process called the glycolytic pathway. It's glucose turning into pyruvate. Heat is generated because yeast needs heat or generates energy in the form of NADH or ADP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which is part of the fermentation process. But that's when the juice turns into wine, right? And the other thing is obviously the juice is fermented on the skins. So again, the importance of picking out underripe or pink berries cannot be understated, because you're trying to get extraction, you're trying to get color. Cabernet has that. If you're harvesting it late, it's going to have acidity, it's going to have tannin development, it's going to have anthocyanins, and what you want to do is obviously pull that out as well. So there's a couple of things that we do in the fermentation process. There's a 1 ton bin. We might put them in 1 ton bins for experimental purposes. Could be native fermentation, could be different yeast fermentations. But as that CO2 kind of gets generated, it really pushes the skins to the top of the fermentation vessel, right? So we do a number of punch downs, and we also do pump overs. Pump overs is where you take the fermenting wine from the bottom of the vessel and you kind of pump it over and you circulate it over. Not only are you keeping the cap wet and you're trying to get as much extraction as possible, you're also trying to homogenize the temperature. You don't want to have these fluctuations of temperature, and you also want to mix the yeast up through there as well. Now this is something called a punch down, and that literally, as the name suggests, is where you take a little paddle and you literally are pushing the skins down under the fermenting wine, and then it comes back up, and you do that and you do that and you do that and you do that. The duration of which, the temperature at which you ferment, the yeast you use, how long you punch down for, how long you pump over for, has a profound effect on the level of extraction that you get from your wine as well. So fermentation goes, hopefully it's good, it finishes, all the sugar gets scavenged. You certainly don't want stuck fermentations, you don't want fermentations that give you off egg. Those are reductions notes, so you get H2S or mercaptans, which reduces further, which is thiols, and you get disulfides, diethyl disulfides, dimethyl disulfides, and then you're a word of hurt. So there is a lot that goes into fermentations, not only in the temperature and choosing the right yeast, and if we are using ambient yeast or uncultured fermentations, you want to make sure everything is clean. But the intention here is to ferment to dryness. Now when we talk about that, we always talk about there's some residual sugar in the wine, 0.1, 0.2%, which is 1 or 2 grams per liter, because the 5 carbon sugars are unfermentable, and that's your xarabinose, your xylose, your pentose, those sort of things as well, right? So you've done the fermentation, then there's another stylistic decision. How long do you leave now the wine on the skins? Do you do post-ferment maceration? Do you want to extract even more tannins? Do you want to extract tannins from the seeds because now they're alcohol soluble? You're going to pull those kind of tannins out. Or do you press off? Now press off is, again, very literal translations, but the wine gets separated from the skins and the skins go into the press. So now this is a bladder press. There are hydraulic basket presses, but this is a bladder press. It is automated, or we can put it in a manual program, and we can press really, really, really gently. The more you press, the more you extract out of the skins, the grape chemistry changes. You look at the pH, you look at the tannin, you look at the sugars. What we mainly do is we taste and we taste and we taste and we taste. And at some point we figure out that, this press fraction should not go into the free run wine or the light press fraction. It's starting to detract. It's losing character. It's losing flavor. Right, so when we talk about press fractions, we have the free run wine, which is the wine that's taken from the fermentation vessel. The light press is anywhere from sort of 0.2 to 0.6. Medium press 0.6 to about 1.1, and the heavy press is 1.1 to about 2. Right, and then at the end of the day, the other important part of Cabernet is barrels and oak. Right, and that's it. Now, this wine, even though it spent 3 years in barrel, did not see any time in a brand new barrel. All right. The important part of oak is that I think some people give oak a bad rep. Oak is wonderful. It can impart nuances and texture and weights and flavors and smoke and toast and mocha and coffee and all of that. What I don't like about barrels is when it dominates the grape, or it's used to cover up the grape, and that's all you taste, and you have the tannins that just don't seem to align, because at the end of the day, we've spoken about a lot. Those barrels behind me, everyone has access to those barrels. The same barrel kind of buyers go to all the wineries in Virginia and offer their barrels, right? I don't have any unique barrels, so I have barrels that other incredible wineries in Virginia use, and if my wine starts tasting like a barrel, our wine then becomes a little bit more generic, and it loses the essence or the fingerprints or the characteristic of Keswick Vineyards. And that was that video. And it really is, terroir is driven home in these wines, is that what you smell in this glass really is an expression of place, or should be an expression of place. What oak is a flavoring, it's a seasoning. You have beautiful steak, but without salt and pepper, it could be bland. So you lose a little bit of that, or you use butter, or you use sort of thyme or rosemary, and you baste it, and it builds up the flavor of the steak. Wood can do the same thing. Now, this wine was aged for 34 months in barrel, so we didn't want to put a lot of new oak on it. We didn't want the wine to taste like cedar or pine or oak. We knew that you would have access to the wine early, but we also wanted to make sure that the wine had the stuffing and the structure and all those characteristics that would allow the wine to age for sort of 5 to 10 years. But that really is the sort of the way we go through it. But let me also say that at the end of the day, it really is, it really is an expression of place. And that is our mantra, is that what you smell and taste in the glass is really an expression of the environment, and that the work done by the men and the women in the vineyard, to whom all the credit goes. The winemaker's job is just the expression of those characteristics in a glass. All right, so that was 30 minutes of processing. Let's talk about the wine. And as always, if you have any questions, please just shoot them. I've got my wife, Kath, as you know, is sitting right next to me, taking them all down, and we will answer them as quickly and hopefully as live as we possibly can. So, Block 7, it is a vineyard designated label. It means that all the fruit comes from what we refer to as Block 7. Block 7 is where that wind machine was in the video. Block 7 was planted in 2000, so it's almost 20 years in the ground, which is fantastic. It's past 20 years in the ground, rather. It's planted on those shale and schisty soils. It's east-west orientation. It's 575 feet, so we don't have a lot of elevation. But the great thing about Cabernet Sauvignon is that it buds a little bit later, so when we get frost, we are spared a little bit in terms of that. But if we get those late season rains in September, October, you are going to get a dilution effect. You can deal with rots, especially have bird damage, deer damage, or any other damage as well. So there's that trade-off. So generally we get through frost, no problem with Cabernet Sauvignon, but you need those sort of warmer, drier temperatures and days towards the end of the year as well. All right, estate reserve. Any wine that has a state reserve or a block designate is 100% grown on our estate. The other thing that's really important to note with this wine is that it is 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. We could blend up to 25% of any other varietal. It says Monticello, which means that it's 85% of the ADA. It's 100% estate grown. It's 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. There's no Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cab Franc blended in there as well. And it is from those beautiful, beautiful kind of rows that we value so highly. The other question I always get is, why go with the block? Why don't just blend and make, instead of making 300 or 400 cases of this, why not make 1,500 or whatever of a Cabernet? And that's a great question. It would make more sense, obviously, from a commercial point of view, to make a Cabernet and volumize it. But we're also trying to kind of learn not only the macroclimate, but also the meso and the microclimate. We're trying to figure out where the best fruit comes from. Is the fruit different? Are the clones, are the rootstocks, are those important? Are there soil differences? And ultimately, how do you know that unless you make the wine from that specific block of grapes, bottle it, and then analyze it 3, 5, 7, 10 years down the line? So for us, this is about experimentation. We're never happy with the wine. You know, we always want to make a wine better than last year, but never as good as the next. All right, so that's about it. So let's jump into it. As always, I'm trying to find a white piece of paper. I have one, information on the other side that no one sees. But with Cabernet, as with all wines, obviously color it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's certainly the thing that you see. And with this wine, it has got beautiful, beautiful, beautiful extraction. The color in the core extends almost to the rim. If I'm looking down, I actually cannot see where the stem and the bowl actually meet, which for me would be more sort of medium. This is really quite deep, but on the edge, I still get a lot of sort of those red kind of tones. So I would say this is deep ruby. It doesn't have the purple kind of characteristics that I sort of equate with some sort of Cabernets or Zinfandels from California, or Shiraz or Syrah that comes from Australia as well. So it's got beautiful color. It's really, 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 really extracted. So again, a big glass to aerate it and give it some oxygen, because this is a young wine. This is a wine that we're drinking, in my mind, probably 3 to 5 years too early, probably at its best in another 7 to 10. Now, why we aerate the wine, we swirl it, we're volatilizing, which by definition means the ability to vaporize and esters. Those are the things that are odoriferous, and esters are the reaction between alcohols and acids as well. So now when you think of Cabernet, you're going to think of a couple of things. You're certainly not going to be in the citrus kind of range. You might not necessarily be in the floral. You're trying not to be in the herbaceous or herbal, so you're really looking at sort of black fruit, red fruit, maybe spicy, and then you're looking at nuances that come from oak. So you might get some coffee and smoke and toast, and that sort of thing as well. So again, before we do this, always a cheers and a send our love to all of you out there. So if you have this wine, please let me know what you think of it. I'm really, really kind of excited to hear. So off the bat, it's quite a pronounced nose. I wouldn't say quite pronounced. I'd say sort of medium plus in terms of intensity, but you don't have to stick your nose deep into the glass to get these aromas. These aromas sort of, I can smell them about there. Certainly not at the chest, which for me is pronounced, but I can certainly get at the chin. But I'm getting a lot of sort of darker spectrum right off the bat. I'm eliminating any sort of citrus and floral and stone fruits and tropical. There's certainly none of that. This is really dark fruited, black cherry, black plum, cassis, which is black currant. It's got blueberry, it's got blackberry. Really lovely sort of darker berry flavored kind of notes there as well. Certainly getting a little bit of that smoke and a little bit of that toast and a little bit of that sort of espresso kind of character, like coffee rub in a way. Really sort of pretty. Not getting anything herbaceous. I'm not getting any sort of lavender or thyme or rosemary, anything like that. Floral, not so much floral. This is a deep, brooding like midnight kind of wine. It's got a lot of dark fruit. It's got a little bit of sort of like an interesting sort of spicy pencil lead, graphite, earthy iron kind of content as well, which is really, really pretty. But this is certainly not a wine that you're going to sit and go, I have to drink this in the next year or two. This is a wine that's quite complex. It's quite deep. It's quite extracted, but it really is dark fruited, dark spiced. It's got bitter chocolate, like really, really lovely bitter chocolate, dark chocolate on the nose. Certainly not milk chocolate like maybe Merlot does. Which is really interesting, because if you're going to smell those flavors, you should taste those flavors, and those things that we described are wines that I would love to drink. So let's go. A quick rinse in the mouth, as always. Get rid of what you tasted, get rid of what you drunk. Another taste. All right. First thing, the wine is dry. There's no sugar whatsoever. But when I say dry, I don't mean drying. I mean dry that there's no sugar. This is fermentable. There's no residual sugar. There's no medium minus, medium plus, or in sort of sweetness there as well. The acids, sort of medium plus. And again, remember, acidity is once you've swallowed the wine, that tingling sensation on the tip of your tongue. But what I really, really, really love about this wine is actually how big but how soft the tannins are. It's really sort of a juxtaposition. When you talk about tannins, you can think of sort of drying, austere, chalky, bitter components in there as well. These tannins are really fine grained. They're really savory. They're really supple. They're very, very silky. And you get them on the fronts of your teeth, but you really get them down the sides of your gums. Now, tannins are polyphenolic compounds that by definition precipitate and bind with proteins. So they're reacting with the proteins in your saliva. And that's why you're tasting them down the side there as well. The other thing that you would look at is obviously the length and the body of the wine as well. So when you talk about body, think about whole milk, skim milk, and 2% milk. That really gives you an idea of full-bodied and light-bodied wine in terms of how the wine feels in your mouth. But when you talk about body, it's almost about the weight of the wine in the mid to the back palate as well. So this is not truthfully, this is not a California Cabernet. It's not high alcohol. The alcohol is medium because it's at around 14%. You know, it's got tannins, but they're really soft. The body is sort of medium plus. It's not full bodied. It's not jet fuel in a bottle, right? But I kind of like that. I like wines that show elegance and restraints and balance and acidity and vibrancy more so than sort of a wine on bloody steroids. You know, I just don't dig drinking wines like that as well. The length is actually, it's still there. I can still taste it in the mouth, so it's got beautiful length, but it's really an elegant, supple, beautiful wine. You know, it's hard to say. You don't want to be too kind of complimentary of your own wine, and certainly always hesitant to do that, because I've drunk a lot of incredible Cabernets in Virginia and elsewhere, obviously, as well. But I'm super pumped with this wine. What I love is the oak is not really aggressive. It's not dominating in the wine. You know, after 3 years in the barrel, you would think that the oak would be like, rah, you know, kind of dominating the wine as well. The oak is really well integrated. It's really well balanced. And I think what that does is it speaks to a couple of things. Number one, I think it speaks to the quality of the fruit. The quality of the fruit, the ripeness and the sucrosity and the flavors. I think it also speaks to the quality of the work done in the vineyard, you know, and the processors giving me the option to kind of make that wine. It was beautiful fruit. It was really, you know, integrity. It had sugar. It had acid. The fruit was just wonderful looking, and you know, it gave us an option and a chance to make a beautiful expression of what I think is one of the most ethereal wines in the world. Again, so I'm going to take some questions and see, because Kat's writing very vociferously here. I kind of like this wine. I like this wine a lot. A couple of thoughts in terms of aging. You know, this wine will see 5, 6, 7, 8 years, no problem. Absolutely no problem. Obviously, when we're talking about aging, we're talking about cellar facilities that allow you the ability to age. So humidity, you know, cool temperatures, consistent temperatures, away from sunlight, away from vibrations, that sort of thing. Yeah, just a beautiful glass. And what I would really love to do is pour this in a blind tasting with some Bordeaux and some California. I think it might not be the best wine, but I think it would certainly surprise a couple of people that the little state of Virginia can make some pretty damn good Cabernet. So what I'm going to do is take one more sip, put this to the side, and kind of answer some of your questions, because we have a few that's coming in. So, well, the first question I have is, you're drinking Cabernet. What do you think of it, Lovey?
I think it's really good. It tastes like the winery smells at harvest.
Ooh.
That really like.
Ooh, that's poignant. Kat says the wine tastes like the winery smells during harvest, and how would that be?
It tastes like harvest, like fresh fruit and.
Like fermenting juice and floral and fruity and just vibrant and. That's really awesome. All right, cool. So, hello, love. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for giving up your time, obviously. But why don't we answer some questions from the fine folks out there?
We don't have too many questions. I'm writing down more comments.
Okay.
So Dave Maddox said that Virginia can beat California with one bottle tied behind its back.
Ooh, well, that's a big statement, Mr. Maddox. You know, I can appreciate what California does with Cabernet, but when you have a hot sort of Mediterranean climate out there, no rain, and you get those ripeness levels, and you think of the AVAs like Oakville and Rutherford and Stag's Leap and Carneros and you know, Saint Helena and Calistoga, there's some pretty amazing Cabernets that come out of there. So yeah, we would like to believe that we could get to those levels, but also they're different styles. You know, big alcohol, big hedonistic wines. I think they show a little bit more oak, but they probably could take a little bit more oak than Virginia wines. But what I really love, Dave, is that you firmly believe that Virginia can kind of go up against the big boys in California, and I'm excited to hear that. And I believe so too. You know, Cabernet certainly might not be our ace in the hole, so to speak, but 17 and 19 are going to surprise a few people without a doubt.
Erica is pouring her second glass now. She noticed on the nose dark fruits and a hint of cloves. And she's
Huh.
pairing it with pork chops with an espresso barbecue rub from Shenandoah Spice Company.
Mm.
So a local spice company.
Yeah, so local spice company. Erica, I'm glad you're pouring your second glass. The intention of making wine is really to enjoy it, right? It would be really, really a shame if you just drank one glass and put the bottle away. So the second and third and fourth glass, is because you deserve it. The fact that you're also using a local spice rub company is fantastic. Not only do we drink local, we support local. And if we drink local, it's not only just wineries and breweries and cideries, it's meaderies and distilleries as well. So love that and really appreciate that. And fantastic comment. I hope it goes well with the pork. Obviously, pork for me is something I would pair with Merlots and Pinots and maybe softer. So I'd really love to kind of hear from you how the pairing of a Cabernet and maybe a fuller-bodied wine goes with a pork dish as well. So.
And Glenn Johnson just asked, the cedar that comes across in wines, is that coming from the oak or the fruit or a combination of both?
So Mr. Johnson, Glenn, good evening to you. When you talk about cedar, you're really talking about influence from the barrel. And that could come from a variety of oak. With this wine, we're using French oak, generally center of forest, France or Allier Nevers, 3-year air dried, 28 mil staves, medium plus. But I think you're getting a little bit more of that sort of cedary kind of pine character that comes from the barrel as well. And leading, when we're talking about barrel, Lanny White asked, why so long in the barrel? That's a great question. So we have never really exceeded 22 months prior to that, but we had our Block 3 Cabernet that we bottled. There was really no reason to bottle the 7, so we were left with two sort of thoughts or school of thoughts. One was to bottle the wine and age it in the bottle. The other was to really sort of explore what additional aging in the barrel could do. Now, we had the option, Lanny, of obviously pulling the wine out of the barrel earlier, putting it in a tank and bottling it, but we just really loved, the texture and what the sort of the neutral oak was doing to the wine as well. And then at the end of the day, it came to a matter of sort of logistics, right? We were getting into harvest, we wanted to free up the barrels, and the wine, I think, doesn't showcase the fact that it spent 34 months in barrel. And I hope that could be said of next week when we talk about the heritage as well. So it was purely experimental. Partly it was purely because we didn't need the wine. And, as we were tasting it month to month, we didn't feel that the oak was really aggressive and dominating what was a wonderful vintage for Virginia. So a simple but complex question. But more importantly, to you and Suzanne, I hope you're doing well, and love to that little grandkid of yours. He's a cutie.
And Dennis asked, how long can this age now that's in the bottle, do you think?
So that's a great question. It's always the question of aging. The question is really, how long would you require for the wine to reach its peak? And that's always a tough question, because number one, we haven't made Cabernets many years. Like I said, we did 7, 9, 10, 14 through 17. So 7, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16. So by the time we did 17 vintage, that was the 8th Cabernet vintage that we had done. So we don't have a lot of data to really answer that question well. I think it would be drinking incredibly well from around 5 to 8 years. Now, would the wine last 10, 11, 12, 13? I think so. But the trick and the answer to the question is always, when is the best time? At what point would you drink the wine that gives you the best enjoyment? Now, obviously, wine is experiential. It's also romantic. It could be your 50th wedding anniversary. It could be 75th birthday coming up, Mr. Sugameli. And that wine is really going to kind of help with that as well. But if you were drinking the wine just on a Thursday night at your home with just a TV dinner or whatever it is, at what point does that wine give you the best value for aging? I would say between 5 to 8 years. I would feel that it needs a little bit of time. It's beautiful, it's elegant, it's fruity. I'm finding a lot of sort of primary and secondary notes on this wine. I would love to see some sort of tertiary notes, a little bit of leather, a little bit cigar box and tobacco. That for me makes the wines more interesting. If you love more fruit, certainly you want to drink the wine a little earlier, and you can drink the wine now, but perhaps 3 to 5. But if I were giving you a personal opinion, I would say from 5 to 8 years, this wine is going to drink spectacularly. And I'm looking forward to putting a couple aside and kind of drinking this in 2025, 2026.
Virginia Wine Time asks, how do you figure out how many months to keep it in barrel? Can it be in there too long?
That is a great question. So firstly, Virginia Wine Time, that's Paul and Warren, and I hope you guys are doing well, and lots of love to you guys. Yeah, certainly you can overage your wine. I think in past vintages we perhaps have, and we've kind of left the wine in the barrel too much. Now, if you leave it in the barrel, you probably have to leave it in the bottle a little bit longer. So it is a difficult question to answer, because there is that notion of business and wine club and tasting room. We know that our wines come onto the market fairly quickly, so you want to make the wines drinkable but age-worthy but drinkable. So with this, the fact that most of it was neutral barrels, there was no new oak whatsoever, the fact that we're tasting it and we had the ability to pull it out of the oak when we felt that the oak was being a bit too aggressive. But on the flip side, yeah, can you leave a wine in too long? Without a doubt. I've tasted quite a few wines that I feel like, maybe it's a stylistic thing, maybe the winemaker, he or she felt that it needed it, but for me personally, the oak was too aggressive. I find that on California wines, I find that on South African, Australian wines, and certainly in Virginia wines as well. And then at that point you think, like, is oak used to cover up something? Is oak used as a flavor enhancement? But at the end of the day, the best wines are an expression of the grape and the terroir and the place in which it's grown, not so much the barrel or the vessel in which it's matured as well. So for us, again, if you feel that this wine is oak dominated and we spend too much in it, I would love to hear your thoughts. We felt personally that the oak was really integrated and there was still a lot of fruit and there was a lot of balance. But can you leave a wine in a barrel too long? Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
So based on your age recommendation for this wine, Mark Schaefermeyer asked, does that mean the 2014 Cab Sav will be at its peak soon?
Yeah, so the 2014 was a beautiful, beautiful vintage. So in terms of vintages, 17, 14, obviously the 7, which was our Governor's Cup wine, and 9 and 10 were great. Now, I'm going to say this, yeah, and I do it all the time, and everyone thinks I'm just full of crap, and it's a marketing thing. I've just blended our 2019. Now, that spent 2 years in barrel. The 19 Cabernet. Now, I don't know if Al is on tonight. If he is, he didn't say hi. But we think the 19 might be, our Block 7 2019 might be the best Cabernet that we've ever made, and we bottle it June 24th. In terms of the 2014, we bottled that in August of 2016. So we're coming up on 5 years, and for that I always said sort of 6 to 8. So I truthfully would say that I haven't had the 14 in quite a while, but I would imagine that it's now starting to develop and showcase those characteristics that really we find in a lot of Keswick Cabernets. I think you're going to get the brightness, you're going to get the elegance, you're going to get the dark fruited flavors, but I would imagine in the next year or two that wine would then be available to drink, and then for the next 5 years after that, because the theory is obviously the time it takes from bottling to reach its peak is the time it's going to stay at its peak before it degrades and becomes past its prime as well. So if you've got 13 and 14, now I would say 14 was a much better vintage than 13, better vintage than 15, 16 and 17 were top class vintages as well. But if you've got that 14, it's now coming up, it's 4.5 years in the bottle. It is now, if you've got a few bottles, it might not be a bad punt to kind of drink one and see what you think. And if you ever do, please post about it, write about it, tell us what you think. We're always here to learn and find those comments. But for me, I would probably give it another year or two. But we're getting to that point where I think that 14 is just going to sing and be a beautiful bottle of wine as well.
And a question, back from the beginning when you were playing the video, Sylvia Miller noticed that there's different spacing in the different blocks. Is there a reason for that?
Sylvia Miller, so Inspector Sylvia over there, great eye. Yeah, there's been a couple of changes over the years, right? So, viticulturally is where it all starts, right? So you look at your terroir and your elevation and your soil and your row orientation and your aspect, because again, grapes need a few things to be able to ripen. Obviously, Pat and Harvey, if you're watching, I know they need the ground, but if you have the land, they need the heat and the sunlight, the water, the nutrients, and carbon dioxide, right? So, back in 2000 where the vines were planted, we didn't know a lot. We knew a bit. The vineyard manager of that was a California gentleman, and the vineyards were put in 9x6, 9 feet between the rows, 6 feet between the vines, which is 808 vines per acre. Certainly is not a high density planting whatsoever, because we deal with a lot of rainfall, we got clay, we deal with a lot of vegetation now. What we've done with the vineyards that I specifically put in, and my first vineyards that I got to select the clone and the rootstock, and where we put it was 2016, we doubled the amount of vines per acre. We went, instead of 9x6, we went 9x3, so 1,600 vines per acre, which means that each vine has to produce half the amount of fruit for us to get the same tonnage per acre. At the end of the day, it's all about quality, quality, quality. The other thing that we did is we're planting them on soils that are really, really poor. They don't promote vigorous growth. They're planted on the schist. And again, we're planting on soils that, just to remind you, kind of look like that. We're looking for those soils. That is under the Manio and the Tatum series. They're quite shallow. They have a gradient of around 4 to 8%. They're extremely well drained and they're extremely acidic. So we've been trying to rectify that. We're trying to add more lime, dolomitic and calcitic lime. And, we're trying to grow. So more alkaline soils give you more sort of acidity in the juice. It's why Chablis and Burgundy and Sancerre make wines that are incredibly high acid. Because they're planted on alkaline soil, so we're trying to do that. So we felt that we could increase the density, we could ask the vines to produce less fruit, but we could also make quality fruit. So that was something that we did. And then with advancements in material and different rootstocks and different clones that were available, and plus with the know-how, after 16 years of working with Keswick, we have a bit of an intuitive sort of feel as to which grapes should go where. Right behind me, that's north. So the vines behind me run east to west. So that is important in terms of where the east rises. That's the morning sun versus the west, north, south. You have a very cool sort of side of the canopy. You have a west side of the canopy. So we are learning how to grow fruit. We're also dealing with vintages that are very different. You look at like 2003, 2011, and 2018, excessive amounts of water. You're looking at 2010 in extreme drought year. Then you're looking at your very good vintages, your 9, your 14, your 16, your 17, and your 19. And then the years of frost, like 20 and 18, where you just got absolutely kind of crushed. There has to be a certain amount of intuition, experimentation, and learning. Do we know everything? Do we have the right vineyards planted in the right areas? We have a lot of it. But I don't think that we've made our best wine yet. I don't think we've grown our best fruit, and that's really exciting as a producer, and for you to be a member of our wine club, to be a member of or a consumer of Virginia wine, because I know what I'm saying. A lot of Virginia winemakers and growers are saying that our best vineyards, our best fruits, our best wines are still to be made, and that's why Virginia for me is such not only an eclectic but a phenomenal area in which to not grow grapes, but to be a lover of wine, because we make such a diverse range of incredible wines. So long answer question, but yes, it's a great sort of catch is that our vineyards in the back there's different rootstocks, different clones, and highly density planted, and we think those vineyards are gonna produce the best fruit. And what I would love to say is that our 19 will blow the 17 out of the water. And even more than that, I'd love to say the 2021 was even better than the 19. And if we do that, then we're moving in the right direction. And that is exciting. It's also scary that we haven't even tapped into, the full potential of Keswick and Virginia Cabernet Sauvignon. So great question though. Cool. What else do we have, my love?
So Bill Harvey had an interesting thing. How can you compare the 17 to the 07?
Ooh. Well, there's a couple of things that that's Mr. Harvey. Bill, he used to work in the tasting room down in North Carolina. Bill and Nancy, God bless, and lots of love. Some of my favorite people in the whole wide world. So look, 7 is always going to be a wine that sort of you have an attachment to. It was our Governor's Cup winning wine. It was the first Governor's Cup we had at Keswick Vineyards. It was the second one that I got, but one with the red wine with the varietal that Virginia didn't do too well. A couple of things there. That wine was aged for 10 months and it had 20% Merlot in it. Now we've gone 2 years and, kind of 100% Cab Sav. Do I think the wines that we're making right now are better than the 7? Absolutely, without a doubt. Are they more balanced? Are they more indicative of terroir? Are they more indicative of that style of us as growers? Without a doubt. Does the 7 and will the 7 always have a special place in our heart because of what it did? Yeah, without a doubt. So can you compare them? You can't. They're great for different reasons. But at the end of the day, the job, the mantra, the philosophy, the thing that drives you is to make a better wine. And as much as you can kind of go on history, and what we've done in the past, our first vintage of Viognier won Best White Wine in America at the Atlanta International Wine Summit. Doesn't mean we sit on that laurel and say we make the best Viognier. We have to go out there and improve upon that O2 and make a better, and that's it. So the 7 was wonderful. It did great for us. It's certainly a wine. I don't have any bottles. I drank my last one not so long ago. It was beautiful. It was lovely. But at the end of the day, I think the 17, the 19, and the future wines are going to be even better. But I do want to say, Bill and Nancy, obviously, we miss you. We hope you're doing well, and we send you lots and lots of love, and wish you all the best down there. Cool. What I'm going to do, we're at 8. We haven't even spoken about how you can get this wine, and you can. So give me a couple of minutes and stick with us. I'm not sure how many people are even watching this this kind of program now that we're at 8 o'clock. But let me go. Yeah, it's already 8 o'clock. I can waffle about Cabernet forever, my love. So this wine obviously was decanted 2 hours, so it's been in the glass for now 3. We decanted it at 5. We poured it at 7. It's now 8. It's come up to temperature a little bit. It was a little bit cold. For me, again, wine is all about sort of personal experiences, and personal preferences. If you serve wines too cold, they're going to taste thin and harsh. If you serve them too warm, they're going to taste a little bit sort of muddled. So room temperature, so slightly chilled and getting them up to room temperature. I think this is the perfect temperature now. It has got incredible aromatics. It's got really dark fruited flavors. It's got a lot of spice. It has that cedar. It has that sort of, but it's done in sort of a restrained way as well. And again, if someone had to say, describe the 17 in one word, I would just say it's elegant. It's graceful. It's Grace Kelly in a bottle. That's the best way to do it. It is not going to be the loud, obnoxious, drunk person that rocks up to the party at 10 o'clock at night. It's not going to be the shy person that sits in the corner. This is just elegant and beautiful and balanced. And that's, again, credit to the folks in the vineyard, doing a great job growing this fruit, allowing me the opportunity to make this kind of wine. So talking about it, it is a little on the pricey side, but it's worth it. I think quality comparative California wines are going to cost you 3 times as much, maybe 4 times. Kat's saying 5 times or 6 times. So it's $74.95. But again, if you're in the wine club, this is tonight. It's a 30% discount. So that puts you. I can't do the math in my head, but it's $7.50. So what's that? $22.50 minus $75. That puts you at about $50 a bottle. It is an investment. I know it's coming off a little bit of cash, but in terms of wine, in terms of quality wine, for me, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful bottle, and we would love for you to have it. So if you're a gold member, 30% off, silver member, 25%. And again, if you're not a wine club member, we just want to give you 10% just for the hell of it, just to say thank you as well. Talking of the wine club, I know we don't talk about it because I don't really come across as a salesman. I hope I'm not. But I do want to push the wine club a little bit and say that the wine club is not just a club. It really is a family. It is we value the club. We build the relationships with the members. We want you to have wonderful wine. We want you to feel that you get value for your money. So free to join, 6-month commitment. It's $52. If you have the wines sent to you, it's $50. If you just get the wines and you pick it up, you get a free glass of wine or a free flight every time you visit. And we've got some incredible wines coming your way. And like I said, we've got better wines still to come your way. So consider joining. Check us out, keswickvineyards.com, Facebook, or Tasting Room. We would love you, or we'd love to have the opportunity to kind of serve you some wines and really build a relationship with you as well. So the other thing we want to say, what else? Next bottling is June 24th. We are bottling the 2019 Cab Sav. We have an incredible Syrah and the Merlot Reserve. The other thing that a lot of people are asking, and I have an answer for you, consensus. If you're looking for consensus and want to join, we are doing consensus in January of 2022. Tickets will go on sale in November and December. So check out those emails. Make sure, also, if you're not getting any of the updates and emails, please let us know. We have a lot of information we want to send to you. Also, Wine Club members, we do a once a month Zoom chat where we just talk about wine. We have some fun. Kefany, if you don't know, Kefany is our new Wine Club manager, and welcome to Kefany. And Karen is there, our longtime tasting room manager, and all of us, Kath, myself, we're always available personally as well. So let's take one or two more questions, and let's see. Kath had to run off, but we do have a couple of questions here. Let's see. Dave Maddox, or it's rather a comment. Dave Maddox, don't like the greener stuff in the cab. I agree with you, neither do I. I think I love veggies, but I love it on a plate, not in wine. Erica had a great question. How big are the clusters for Cab Sav? We're looking at 0.2 to 0.25 pounds. So 4 clusters gives you a pound. 8 clusters or so gives you a kilogram, and so on and so forth. So we're around 0.2 to 0.25 pounds per cluster as well. James and Claudia, really love the wine, really appreciate that. It's always lovely to hear. Let's see who else. The Bassett's plum with the dispensing system. Obviously, that's great. Aeration, you're going to get a lot of those black sort of fruited components. Hello, my boy. And then we also have a lot of people saying, where are your guys? Well, the guys are, yeah. Let's see if Mary wants to come to me.
Maverick just came in on his own.
Hello. You want to say hi to everybody? Let's do that. Look how big he's getting. Hello, my boy. And there's Alakai, and there's Kath. The terrible twins, the Irish twins. You say hello. How are you? You doing well? Oh, you're giving me hugs. Love you, love you, love you, love you, love you. And at the end of the day, remember that wine is a luxury. Sometimes you need it, but at the end of the day, what's more important is family, health, love, and we wish all of those for you as well. So I do get to come home to these little rascals, and then obviously Aria, who's just too cool for school as well. So Maverick is doing incredibly well. Can't believe that he'll be 2 in November. Alakai is 1, June 25th. What else can we say? Always in absentia, we want to recognize the folks in the vineyard that work the fields, that work on the grapes. They deserve a lot of credit for the wine in your glass. Secondly, we want to say thank you. We want to say thank you to all of you that give up your time to listen to us waffle about wine. Give up your hard-earned dollars to support not only Keswick, which we really appreciate, but we know a lot of you support Virginia wines, and for that we are very, very grateful. Us at Keswick, we are firm believers that in all raising tides raise all ships. So yes, we are very passionate about what we do and very protective of our terroir, but we are very mindful of the fact that we are part of an incredible industry, and want everyone to do well, and want to spread that message of drink local and support local. What else? And then, again, want to say thank you from my family. Firstly, obviously, that's Alakai and Maverick and Aria and Kath. And then our Keswick family, and that's Al and Cindy and Alison and Lachelle and Brian and Mark and Eric and Rachel and Graham and Chris, Tiger Lily and all of us. And all of the staff. You know, we really, really do appreciate being able to stay open and serve you and make wines. And I just want to say that I'm always humbled by the support, and I just want to send a big cheers and a message of gratefulness to you and obviously to my wife. You know, I never say thank you enough, but I have a superstar right next to me who is brilliant and beautiful and amazing and allows me to spend way too much time at work. You know, and hopefully you taste all the passion and all the love that goes into making Keswick wine. So again, 2017 Cab Sav. Next week we're talking about the Heritage. 2017 Heritage, the 85% Cab, 7.5% Merlot and Cab Franc. And then we're going to announce, obviously, what we're doing in the future. We have some ideas. I've been asked to do a blind tasting of Virginia wines, which is quite scary because then you're really putting me on the spot. Where we're looking to invite some really wonderful folks on. As always, if you have any comments or thoughts, anything that we can do to make your experience as a wine club member, as a patron, as a visitor to Keswick Vineyards that much better, please do let us know. But at the end of the day, what I'd like to say is just thank you. We are grateful. We love all of you. We appreciate all of you. Drink local, support local. Virginia makes incredible wines, and quite honestly, I'm super pumped about the 2017 Cab Sav. So have a great rest of the evening. Enjoy your week. 6 days and 23 hours, we'll meet each other right here. And we're going to talk about a blended Bordeaux varietal, the Heritage. So I can't wait to see you. God bless to you and your families, and all the best. Have the best ever. Be kind, tell people you love them. America and the world is still a wonderful place to live in. Cheers.